We're on the bottom of Tzadi Amid Beis. 7 lines from the bottom. Tana Rabban. Hachoisem esapara. V'hamezavik b'klayim. The person who muzzles an ox or who pairs together klayim, you're not allowed to work animals of different species together in the same yoke. The person who puts them together in a yoke, or the person who muzzles them, is potter. The only one who is over is the one who actually takes the animal with the muzzle and threshes with him, or the person who actually uses the yoke together klayim and works with them. It's not, even though the pasuk says lesachsim, but what it refers to is bedisha, that it has to be during the time of work. Itma chosam b'koil when he go b'koil. What if a person he didn't put a physical muzzle on the animal? Rather, every time it lowered its head, he would yell at it and chase it away. When he go b'koil or by klayim, he kept them together. They're not in a yoke together, but he controls them with his voice. They listen to him. Rabbi Yochanan says Yechayev because what he causes to happen through his voice by saying something, that's also considered a ma'isa. Rish Lakish disagrees. He says koil is not a physical action, and therefore you can't be chayiv for it. Therefore, it's not considered that you did it. So we have to first see, let's see the top Rashi where he tells us the beginning of the Mishnah in order to make this make sense. So Rashi, everyone could do tmura. That means the Torah says that if someone was mekadesh an animal and then attempts to switch it for another animal, he's chayav alav. So the Mishnah says hakol mamir echar hanoshim ve'echar hanoshim. So now anyone could do tmura, whether it's a man or a woman. And now the Gemara picks up loisha adam rishai lahamer. That doesn't mean that the Mishnah continues, doesn't mean that he's allowed to do tmura. What the Mishnah is saying is, when it says hakol mamirin, it means that if anyone who does tmura is going to be chayiv and get malchus. But in any case, tmura is just saying something. You're just saying, I want this animal to become hektish in place of the other animal. So according to Rish Lakish, who says that it's just a koil. So that which we said over there, and everyone agrees there's a lav. The question is whether it's a lav that you could get malchus on it. That's going according to Yehuda. It says even though there's no maisa, eina chanami, maybe koil is not a maisa, but you were still over on the lav. So even though it's a lav she'ein ba maisa, Rabbi Yehuda says that's not a problem. You could still get malchus. Rabbi Yehuda that means we were going before on the assumption of Yochanan and Rish Lakish that whether you could get malchus depends on whether you did a maisa. We're saying no, we could even go that Mishnah over there that says you can get malchus even for something that's a color. According to Rish Lakish, you would say that's going according to Yehuda. Can you say that Mishnah is going like Yehuda? Vaktani Reish. And we try to understand. What is the hakol mamirin? It's saying, it's not just saying a man and a woman, it's coming to say something else. Lasuya Yairish. It's coming to tell you, even if Ruvain was Makadish, an animal, and then Ruvain died, and his son Moshe was Yairish the animal, even Moshe is usher to exchange it. One might think, since he was the one who's Makadish it, there's no Isser Tmura, he's not as beholden to the Hektish, and he could be made, right? So the Mishnah says, Akol Mamir, to say, no, even a Yerush can't do Tmura. The like Rabbi Yehuda, and this is not like Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Yerush ain't Amar, Yerush ain't Saimach. He holds that a Yerush is not Chayiv on Tmura. if he does so, he's not going to be chayiv for Tmura. And additionally, second din that a Yerush is not Saimach. There's a din that when you makdish a carbon, certain carbonis need smicha. He says it's only the person who was makdish it, but if someone was Yerush it and he brings it, that Yerush doesn't do smicha. But in any case, you see, l'chayra, this Mishnah can't be Rabbi Yehuda, because our Mishnah said hakol mamir, and even a Yerush. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. So tomorrow, haytan asavel kavase b'chad u'palgal b'chad. We said the Mishnah, Hamani Rabbi Yehudi, it doesn't mean it's actually Rabbi Yehuda, it's the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. But the Tana holds like Rabbi Yehuda that even a lav shein b'maisav like a love, but he disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda l'gabi the din of Yerush. But it's not actually meaning to say that the Tana is Rabbi Yehuda. Tana Rabbah, hachosim esapara b'dashpa. I happen to find this fascinating. We're going to be going on for a long time about the dinim of lesachsim shar b'dishay. It just seems like so random to me. It was just I know we have this, the whole shas is like this, but lesachsim shar b'dishay is something that seems so incredibly arcane and not practically applicable, and just blot after blot going into the intricacies of when lesachsim shar b'dishay applies. Anyway, someone who muzzled an ox and he was dashing it. Loika Mishalm Loika, he has to get malchus. Mishalm Dam Kamal Paro, the Gimel Kabel Lechamar. In addition to his getting malchus, he also took away from the owner of the shar. The person who we're talking about over here, where a person rented someone else's par. Obviously, if it's his own par, he can't pay himself. But if he rented someone else's par, the owner of the par was entitled to have his animal be fed. Oh, good morning. So we're on Sadi Aleph, Amar Aleph. 10 lines down. I'm girding myself. I'm not going to let you could, until I see that the blot and a half is in sight, I'm not going to let you distract me.
Sadi Aleph.
Sadi Aleph, Amid Aleph. Tana Rabbanan. Someone who rented a chamar or a para, and then he was chaysim it while it was working. So the renter did two things. First of all, he gets malchus for lesachsim shar b'dishay, but in addition, he stole from the owner of the para, the chamar, that he was required to feed his animal, and he took it away from him. So he has to pay him back, and the Mishnah tells you, the Brisa tells you how much it is. It's 4 kavim. He owes 4 kavim if it was a cow, and 3 kavim if it was a donkey. That's the typical amount that they would eat in a day. We know throughout from Bava, we all learned Makas in 7th grade. Torah says Kadei Rishasai, that a person does not both get malchus and get killed. And similarly, a person can't get malchus and have to pay for the same action. It's kamle b'derabimine. If you're getting malchus, then you don't have to pay. So how could it be that this owner, this worker, has to pay the owner back? In addition to getting malchus, he also has to pay back the gimel v'dalet, the kavim, the amount of the animal they've eaten. We're going according to Reb Meir, who does not agree with that shita. He has a different shita. He says you can get malchus and pay as well. So we have to add in the words of the Goy Sabach, because otherwise it's hard to understand the next thing. Rava Amar bebal lotzes yidei shamayim. We're missing the words bebal lotzes yidei shamayim. Rava's giving a different teretz to this question. That which we say you pay gimel v'dalet is saying that even if he's loika u'mishalim, he does pay 3. He does have to pay. Lotzes yidei shamayim. He's responsible. He should pay. That's not good. He does have to pay even the now, where do we see that there is such a thing, a chiv lotzes yidei shamayim, to pay when you chayiv when you even chayiv malchus at the same time, because we know that the Torah says an esnan, animal that was given in exchange for a zaynas as a pay for a zayna, is usher to be brought as a carbon. But the Torah says that we learn from a pasuk, even if the person who was paying this person who was soliciting a zayna and he was paying with an animal, even if the person who was paying this animal was the son of the zayna, so he's going to be chayiv misa for being baal imay when he actually goes through with it. Even so, the animal that he pays his mother will become aser. And the question is, why should it be aser? Since he's chayiv misa, then he's not mechayiv to pay. Like we said, any chiyuv mamonis is disregarded b'makom that is a chiyuv, like we said, a chiyuv misa or a chiyuv malchus. So this chiyuv mammon that he has to pay her, that which he agreed to pay her, we can be mevatel it. So he's just giving her a matana essentially. So why should that animal still be aser to be brought on the mizbeach? And the teretz is because there still is a chiyuv lotzas yidei shemayim, even though ain't a loiko mashalim and ain't a meso mashalim, but there still is a deraisa dekachiyuv lotzas yidei shemayim that he should pay. So that's what we're saying. That chiyuv lotzas yidei shemayim will make it that the animal that was paid is an esna. So similarly over here, I mean, it's a long way of getting back to the point. But the reason why it's worth it is because the Torah, we see this throughout the Gemara. Esna nasa Torah filu ba'alimai. We had it in Bava Kama. I think it's in other places as well. But this is the makar for the rule that there's a chiyuv lotzas yidei shemayim when you loiko mashalim, and that will be the reason why over here, when someone is a renter, is chaytza mashar, he has to pay the amount that the animal would have been able to eat. Rav Papa Amar mishas mashicha chayav lo b'mezayiseh milka l'lokat shas kasim. Rav Papa says a very simple teretz. He says that the two things are not congruent. The chiyuv of having to pay the money, having to pay to provide mezainis for the animal happens at the time that the renter takes the animal. He's immediately mechayiv to provide a mezainis, and the malchus only comes at the time that he starts working with it with a muzzle. So since they're not at the same time, the chiyuv malchus does not subsume the chiyuv mezainis. Amar Papa. Now we're going to talk about something. Since we mentioned Rav Papa, we're just going to say a member of Rav Papa that has nothing to do with Lesachs. Amar Papa, Hani Mili Bo Mine Debei Rav Papa Baraba. These questions were asked from me by Rav Papa Baraba. Pashtalahu Surah, and I said that they're both aser. Chada kehilchasa, chada delav kehilchasa. One is meikar adin, and one I said is aser, but it's not meikar adin aser. It's my opinion that it should be better to ask. I'm going to explain. Bo mine, ma'u lo lushas isha b'chala. What's the din? Can you make milcha kachala? Can you make milcha bread that's milcha? Pashli lo li surah. And I said, no, it's also to make a milcha bread, kilchas the tanya, like we learned in the brisa. Ein less loshan as isha b'chelev. One cannot knead dough with chelev, meaning not chelev that's also to eat. We're talking about just fleishig fats, like from the alya, which is mutter to eat, but you're making a fleishig bread. But if you do so, the pas is asur, you have to dispose of it, because it's going to cause a problem, as we know, right? You're not allowed to have a milchika bread, or for that matter, we're seeing from the brisa, you can't have a fleishig bread, because we're worried that a person might come to eat it together with, if it's fleishiks, it might eat it with milchiks. If it's milchiks, it might eat it with fleishiks. That's why when we have a milchika bread, where they make special simonim on it, so you know it's like more like a Danish. It's not a regular bread. You can't make a regular loaf of bread that looks just like any other loaf that's milchiks or fleishiks. So that's and he says kiyotzebai, a similar halacha. Ein toshen es ataner ba'alya. one cannot oil they used to put the pitas, the lafas on the side of the tanner to bake. You can't oil it with fleishiks. Bimtosh kolapas kula asura. And if you did so, that made the breads fleishiks, the pastas also achi yisuk tanner. Any bread you're making is going to be awesome because the oil is going to, the grease or the chalev is going to get into the bread. It's going to become awesome. And until you burn out the tanner, it's going to be awesome. Okay, so that was the first din that he said that's taka the halacha that you can't eat a milchik or fleishik bread. Vidach bo minoi, ma'u lahachnes min v'she'ena min ledir. Ask me, what's the din? You're not allowed to breed together different minim of animals. What's the din? If can you pasture them together? And I told him better not to do it. You shouldn't do so because it's going to come to climb. The lav kehilchas, but this is not halacha because one is not really mechoyev just for allowing them to be there together. The Amar Shmuel, if someone's saying edus about a man and a woman that they were being over on one of the Isurei Arayis, as long as he sees them lying in bed together, he doesn't have to see the actual physical action of the Ne'ifa. That's enough to see them in proximity where you can deduce what's going on. However, by Klayim, in order to be chayiv for Klayim, for causing two animals that are of different species, to be chayiv for Klayim, it has to be literally physically placing them together. He has to do the actual act of placing the male animal into the female animal. Masav Rav Achduboy. So that's that's the why his issue that he said you can't put them in a deer together, even though then, like we see from this brisa, like we see from Shmuel, you're not chayiv until you physically, literally put them together. Masav Rav Dechuboy Bar Ami. He asks on this din that we just said that you have to physically put together the animals in order to be chayiv. If we would have just said but you can't put two animals together. I would have thought it means it's not talking about an isser of different animals being put together. I would have thought it's the isser of like a isser of pritzes, that one is not allowed to hold a female in place that at the time that the male is being bonded. But dine pritzes, it could be even the same type of animal. That's what we had to add klayim to tell you that we're only talking about an isser of different types of animals. But from the way this is stated, la mechlal the klayim achizanami loy. But from that it's mashma that by klayim, what we're talking about over there is not literally putting them together, but just holding on to the female. So the vice is that by klayim, all you need to be chayiv is not literally putting them together, but just holding on to the female is enough to be chayiv and klayim. So no, my achiza hachnasa. It means einachanami achiza. Even though it says achiza holding on to the female, it means hachnasa. It means the actual causing the actual mating. Amai karila achiza lishna malya. The Torah, the Memra wanted to say it in a less coarse way, a more refined way. So it said achiza, but it really means actual breeding. Amar Yehuda. Yehuda says, that it's mutter to actually animal husbandry. I think farmers do this all the time. They actually they actually do the physical. They cause the animals to mate together, like putting I think means to putting an ointment into a tube. They actually have to do the mice. There's no priestess involved. My time about it's Torah because they're doing their job, right? The doctor does what he has to do, so a farmer does what they have to do. They're not thinking about it. Is this true that there's no problem of priestess? We bring a ride from that same member that we said before. Klayim who the author Hamina Bimina Ishari. Mashma only Klayim is usher, but If it's the same min, that's allowed. But we described it just as achila, holding on to the female, but we don't say hachnas is allowed. Again, the same shakavataya, that it's just telling you a more refined way of saying it. Amar Ravashi, ha milsa bo minoi debei Rav Nechemia, Reish Galusa. This question was asked of me by Rav Nechemia from the Reish Galusa. Ma'al hachnas min uminoi v'she'enoi minei ledir. We said that according to Rav Papa had said that it's best not to. He said it's lavke hilchasa, meaning it's a refinement. It's a better fnimishur sadin, that one shouldn't even put together in the same pasture different species because of the problem of climb. What's the din if you put together? If you're not just putting together, let's say, a sheep and a donkey, or a sheep and a horse, but you're putting together two sheep and two horses, for example. Even the ikamina basa mina gar, do we say since they have their own min, we don't have to worry in that case about putting them together? Even so, even with this, you shouldn't put together different species. He said, no, you shouldn't do that because the avodim who will watch it, they were choshed that they're going to come to pritzus, or they're going to cause it to happen. It's best to avoid it even under these circumstances. Zok the Mishnah. So going back to the din of leisachsim, the Torah says leisachsim shar b'dishay. You shouldn't put a shar, you shouldn't muzzle an ox while it's doing the threshing. That's the Mishnah. If you have a pile, so we said in addition there's a parallel din that a pile who's working can also take from what he's working on, which is in many ways similar to the din of leisachsim. When does that apply? If a worker is working with his hands, but not with his feet, or let's say he's stomping on grapes, but he's not using his hands. Or even if he's carrying things on his shoulders, in any case, he's allowed to eat. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't have to be doing with both his hands and his feet. Yehuda says, no, he's only going to have a din of being entitled to eat food as he's working if he's using both his hands and his feet. So the Gemara is going to give the reasons. My time, what's the reason of the first mandama that says it doesn't make a difference? The Torah says kisava by a pile. It says when he comes into the vineyard of his friend, that whatever he's doing, as long as he's working, he's entitled to eat. Yehuda says until he works with both his hands and his feet. My time to be Yehuda, he's shar. He says it's similar to a shar. Mar shar hashiyasa biyadav v'raglav. A shar, has this four hands. His forelegs are considered to be parallel. They're similar to his feet, to his hands, and his back legs are like his feet. So an animal, when he's being dosh, uses both of them. Yehuda is very literal. It says it has to be daima. We have a gzeira shava where we make a gzeira shava between the one who does the muzzling and the one who is muzzled, between the pile, which we say includes the pile, and to the shar lesachshim. So we say that the pile has to be just like the shar, and he uses both his hands and his feet in order to be entitled to eat. Boy Rabbi Bar Huna, dosh ba'ovzin of tarnagoylin. If someone is threshing and he's using geese or chicken do not have any hands. They only have two little legs. It seems like it's going to take a long time to get anything done with chickens, but who am I to question? What would Rabbi Yehuda hold in that case? Does that what you said, that you need both hands and feet? Does that just mean he has to use whatever he's got? And this chicken is giving it all he's got. He's using both of his little feet. So the chicken's going to be allowed to eat. I can't imagine what kind of muzzle you would put on a chicken. This whole sounds like a very weird case. Or you say, no, literally he has to have, any animal can only be entitled to leisachsim if it has the hands and feet, and it doesn't have hands, so it's out of luck. Take. Amar Rav Nachman Rav Avua, Poilim actually hilchim shesi ve'erev bagas oichlin anavim ve'in shoysen yayin. This memory really belongs after the next Mishnah, because the next Mishnah is going to tell us that a person who's working can only eat from that which he's working on. So let's say if somebody's hired to work in the cornfield, he can't pick an apple from the orchard that belongs to the same owner. So a pile who's working on crushing grapes to get out wine. So as long as he's working on the grapes, until the wine starts coming out, he's not entitled to wine. He hasn't yet come to where the part of his work is producing wine. So until he makes a full circuit where he goes first one direction and then the other direction across the threshing floor of these grapes, across the wine press, the gas. Until that point, he could eat the grapes because he's obviously working with grapes, but he hasn't yet produced wines. But once he's walked enough that he actually produced wine, the gas, at that point, he could even drink wine. Okay, so this, like we said, this is dependent on this Mishnah. This Mishnah tells you the rule that the pile can only eat from that which he's actually working on. So the Mishnah. Someone's working with figs, he can't eat grapes. And vice versa. If he's working grapes, he can't eat figs. But he can exercise self-control. He can wait. If he's eating in a plate, if he's working and he sees at the end of the row, he sees a delicious, very big, good apple that he wants to eat. He doesn't have to say, I'm hungry now, I must eat the apple that's in front of me now. He can wait till he gets to the end of the row and eat the apple he sees there. The truth is that the pile or the animal are only entitled to eat. There's only a din of leisach. The more they're actually working. For the benefit of the owner, meaning if the pile, for example, the pile is working and he wants to eat, or an animal that was rented and the owner is required to provide for him we say the payalim can eat when they're walking from one row to the other row, meaning that they shouldn't really be eating at that time because they're not actually engaged in work, but it's to the benefit of their employer, of the boss. That's the best time for them to eat, when they're not actually doing anything. Rather than actually eating while they're working, which would interfere with their work, for their benefit, we allow the Chamim, Hefker, Bez, and Hefker, allow them to eat while they're in between their actual physical labor. Hashav Aveda means just for their benefit. It's like Hashavas Aveda. It's to no one's benefit. It's a loss to the owner that they should be required to eat only when they're actually doing work. So therefore, the Chacham were misaken that he could eat even not when he's actually working. When they're returning from the gas, meaning they brought a load of olives or grapes to the press. So instead of them having to eat while they're holding the grapes, they're allowed to eat while they're going back to pick up the next load, and that won't interfere with their work. Now the Gemara has two pshatim in this. Either it means a chamar, the similar halacha, when a chamar is being unloaded, it can eat instead of while it's walking because it will distract it. Or the Gemara is going to say possibly another pshat that this is a new day. So the Gemara, we said in the Mishnah that if you're doing grapes, you can't eat figs, or figs, you can't eat grapes. What's the din if he's working on one geffen, can he eat in a different geffen? Do we say, since the source, the pasuk for this, is that a pile is allowed to eat while he's putting into the kalim of the balabayis, which is where we learn that it has to be while he's harvesting, and this is the same min, so it's not a problem. What does it have to be from the actual plant that you're taking to put into the kalim of the balabayis? And this is a second plant that you're not working on right now, so maybe that's not included in the hefter. If you'll say working on one plant, you can't eat from a different plant. We saw before that we had sukkim, we learned in the previous blot that a shar, we had to learn that a pile is chayiv even betalish, because we say that a shar, right, that a pile we talk about him taking from what's attached to the ground, him harvesting what's ready, and a shar, it says betalish is talking about threshing when it's already separated. And we learned that the same din would apply even by a shar while it's attached and a adam while it's talish. But the Gemara is saying, where will you ever have a din of shar b'mechuber? A shar, as he's walking, if he's carrying or pulling a wagon, and the guy is standing behind him on the wagon and pulling out, harvesting the fruit, the shar is never going to be standing next to the plant that's currently being harvested. If we're saying that the din of lisachim only applies to the thing that you're currently working on, that shar is not working. He's not near the plant. He's not able to reach the plant that's currently being worked on. So why would we even need a pasuk to tell you that a shar is a din of lisachim b'mechuber, since there's no heter for the shar to eat that plant? He's not working on it. It's a raya that even a different plant there's going to be an entitlement for the shar to eat. Talking about a long plant, a long vine that's laid out, a 20-foot long grapevine, so the animal can eat on one end while they're harvesting on the other. Okay, I only have 10% left on my phone. I don't know why, for some reason it wasn't plugged in properly. So if we die, I'm going to ask someone else to lend me their phone, and we'll try to do it like that. Toshma, someone's working in te'enim. He shouldn't eat that oven. It's our Mishnah. Mishnah is it's only if you're doing two separate species. But if it would be te'enim and te'enim, where it's in the same format as te'enim v'anav, meaning not one, meaning two separate plants, eichel. How do you have that two types of that this two of the same plant that's similar to two different plants? Obviously not the same plant. We're talking about where they were intertwined together, so you could be working on one together with the other. Toshma. We said that the worker is entitled to wait. If he sees there's better fruit later on, he can wait and eat then. If you say that he's not required to only eat from what he's working on at that time, why do we say he should wait and eat it later? Let him go get that apple and eat it now. So Gemara, no, there's a different reason why you can't do that. The lashon is a little mesurus, and I think some of the Mefarshim switch it. But the point is, we don't have a question where he's going to be mevatel himself a malacha. Obviously, he can't stop his work to go get on a different plant. Our question over here of whether he could eat from a different plant is where he has his wife and kids with him. They're waiting on the side, so they could go fetch the other fruit for him. So that's our question. Can he go do that? Is he entitled to eat that? Tashma. So again, another raya on this question whether he can eat from a different plant. Tashma. We said at the end of the Mishnah that this was all said at the time. This heter of achila is only b'shas malacha. We said that we allowed the Pailam to eat as they're walking from one road to the other because they're also when they're returning from the press. Savrua. Mahalach kaisa ma'isudam. It would appear that someone who's going, he's doing a ma'isa of working. That means he's not working on that plant, but he is working. He's doing it for the purpose of the boss. He's working for him. This is part of his job. Obviously, he has to walk to get to where he's working. But even so, we say the only reason he can eat is because of the the takanas chachamim that they don't want the employer to lose out. Why should so we move a sakin that they should be able to eat? Why do we need a takanas chacham? Alma oisab, it must be alma oisab begefen zeh ein oichel begefen acha. If we can eat from one plant while you're working in a different plant, what difference does it make what he's doing? Even if he's walking, let him eat from this this apple that he picked while he was there, or his wife will bring him from the plant, and it's what do you need to come on to takanas chacham? It could be that you could eat from one while you're doing another. But the problem is that the mahalach is not oisa maisa. He's just walking. He's not listening. He's certainly still in the employ of the boss. But at that point, he's not actively engaged in working, so therefore he doesn't get the entitlement of a part. Some have a different version of this. Savrua. We start with the assumption that someone who's walking is not engaged in a maisa. And that's the reason why he can't eat midaraisa. But if he was engaged, if we would have given a different example, where he wasn't just walking, doing that, where he wasn't actively engaged in malach, but if he was, he would be allowed to eat. We wouldn't need the heter of hashavas aveda. We want to bring it a raya fakert. Maybe malach is ka'isa ma'isa, there's no raya fakert. The Mishnah ended off so we wanted to say that was the end of the of what we had said. So we said that even a chamar could eat while it's being unloaded. So the Gemara asks, while it's being unloaded, you will understand that when you unload the animal, you take everything off, and now it's on the side. So where is he eating? Once it's unloaded, the animal's not working anymore. So where is he eating from? So Taisus explains this. I would have thought that the only time a chamor can eat is when it sees what it's doing, the geffen, when it sees. Or on the wagon, Bava gave the time this this is a new din that it's telling you that one might have thought that he can't eat when he can't see. So the Gemara continues. A chamar and a gamal can eat from the burden that's on them, as long as you don't take them and feed them, because if you're going to take and feed it to them by hand, they're going to end up eating more. So it's telling you a new chiddush that they can eat even if they can't see what they're eating. So the Mishnah. A pile can eat a cucumber, even if the cucumber is worth a dinner, and his daily pay is less than that. Kaiseves, fafilu b'dinner. Forgot what a kaiseves is. I think it's a kind of fig or date, dry dates. Even if that's worth a dinner and his whole pay is less than that. Chasma says this entitlement that a pile can eat while he works, he can't get more than what his wages are. So he's limited to the maximum of whatever he's getting paid. But Chum Matir, and the Chum say it's mutter, the Gemara is going to ask, what's the difference between the Chachamim and the Tanakama? We already said that he could eat up to a dinner. He could even eat a dinner, even though that's more than what he gets paid. And then we say that Chum Matir, not like Rabbi Lazar. We do teach a person, a worker, he shouldn't eat up more than what he's getting paid. Because if people are going to say this guy weighs 300 pounds, he's going to eat from the all-day buffet, and then he's going to go home. No one's going to want to hire him. Listen, you're laughing about it, but there's going to be a sheet that says, no, you don't teach people, you don't say that to people, because since he's entitled to it midaraisa, hopefully the owners will say, I'm doing what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants, so I have to hire him anyway.
Certain chachamim is that he should get hired for the next job. That's
I said we teach him for your own benefit.
if he wants to, he can, no?
I say you're saying he doesn't have to be told this because he should realize it on his own.
If he doesn't,
but people can be very foolish. Yeah. So tomorrow. What's the difference between the chachamim who say you could work for a dinar, you could eat a dinar's worth of food even though you're getting paid less, and then we have the chachamim who are matter to even eat more than what you get paid. So the difference between them is the malamdim. That the chacham is saying malamdim. The Tanakama less le malamdim. The Tanakama says, like we said, that since you're entitled midaraisa, the chacham shouldn't mix in, and he should, hopefully he'll get a job and get paid what the Torah dictates. The rabbanon islu malamdim. But like we said in the Mishnah, the chacham say we do try to teach people not to do this. Iboy Seima, another teretz, ikabenai Ravasi. Difference between them is the Ravasi. Dam Ravasi, afilu loy sakri el lifser eshkol echad oichled. Even if he was only hired to take one bundle, said I'll give you $1 to go get that bundle of grapes, and the guy goes and he takes that bundle of grapes and he immediately eats it. You can even do so. This is more of a chiddush than what we had discussed. What we discussed was saying you hired a guy for the day, and it ends up what he pays, what he eats is more than what you pay him. But over here, there's nothing left from what his work. He's going to eat the actual thing that he was hired to do. The guy gets no work out of it. So Rashi says Tanakama is later Ravasi. That we understand the Mishnah that the Tanakama is saying even if he was hired to just do one thing, he's still going to be mutter to do so. And the Chachamim who says Matirin, they say Rav Elazar Chacham said he can't eat more than what his wages are, and the Chacham say he is allowed to eat more than what his wages are, but he can't. The Chacham would still hold you can't just eat everything that you were hired to do. So that's one din. That's a din of Ravasi, and that's how we would understand the machlekes. Ravasi, I feel like batzer ela eshkol echad oichle. And Rav Asi says, in addition, a second din, even if he was hired to work for the whole day, and he can still go take the first thing that he was hired to do, and he could eat it up. It's not a problem. Utricha. Why do we have to say both dinim? If we said the person we was only hired to take one bundle, because over there there's nothing left to put into the kelim of the balabais. So maybe that he could that he's entitled to. Maybe in the second case, we would tell him, don't take the first thing because you have another opportunity. But over here, there's nothing. In the first case, in the case where there's only one, so his choice is either eat it or not eat it. So he's entitled to eat it, so he eats it. But the second case, we say, first, you have an option. You could take a different one. Don't take the first one, take the second one. And if you'd say the second case where there are other eshkalim that he could take, that he's going to continue working, actually in the second case, he could later on be yaitz. But where he's not going to be able to be makayim to put into the kelim of the balabais like the first case, maybe in that case he's not allowed to eat it. That's why Ravasi has to say both cases. In any case, that's a digression into this sheet of Ravasi. Now we're going to go back and say another teretz about what the machlokes between the Tanakama and the Chachamim is. The Amarav, Matzasi Megillah Sarim Bei Rav Chia, because of boy, Isi B'Yehuda Omer, Kitave B'Kerem Reyacha. I found a hidden sefer that says this thing, which is a wild thing. Kitave B'Kerem Reyacha. When you go into the kerem of your friend, the Torah is telling you anyone can walk into someone else's kerem and eat. I don't even know how to explain this. It says Rav, and Rav says, Rav says, how is this going to work? If anyone could just walk into someone's kerem and eat, there's not going to be anything left. There's no it's anarchy. There's not going to be any property rights. Rav Ashi, I'm Rishal Shmaisa Kameder of Kahana. I said this to Rav Kahana, and he explained it. No, that's obviously not what it means. Dilma ba'oisim b'tuzasan the avdu ba'afu. We're talking about maybe there's what it's saying is that there's a right if anyone wants to, if they see there are grapes ready to be harvested, he can just walk into the field without asking the owner and work, and he gets the entitlement of a pile to eat as he works. Says even so, it's still a shafkas chai, because if you hire workers, so they'll eat a bunch of grapes, but eventually they get sick of the grapes and they'll continue working because they get paid for the day. But if anyone who wants to come and work, and as they're working eat, then you'll have every day everyone will come for 5 minutes. Everyone who's poor doesn't have what to eat will work for 5 minutes and eat himself a bunch of grapes, and then move on to the apple orchard and eat some apples, and then but his whole orchard his whole grapevine will get eaten up from a bunch of aniyim. Iboilu. Pile. So this is a general question. This is a question that's we're gonna try for a long time to answer. This that a pile eats, this entitlement of a pile, is that a monetary? We look at basically, is it a financial entitlement that he's entitled to this food? The Torah says that when you work, you get also, this is part of your compensation. Or is it more together of a stakadin, like leka chikra peya, that the Torah says we're giving you some charity that you can eat this. The mainafkam, what's the difference? He says, I want to give my the food that I'm entitled, I want to give it to my wife and sons. If it's a financial entitlement, then he's entitled to it. It's his. He can give it to whoever he wants. He can assign it to who he wants. But if it's a tzedakah type of obligation, it's only him. It's a personal right, but he can't transfer it. It's not transferable. What's it then? Toshma. So we bring a right from our Mishnah. We say you can eat even more than what he's getting paid. If it's an entitlement that he's entitled to it, so we ask, how can he be entitled if he's getting paid a sixth of a zuz, and he's going to be allowed to eat a zuz? It doesn't make sense that he should get entitled financially to more than what he worked. Where it says it's still, what kind of stock is this to say that because he's working, even though he's working for less? The Gemara says even that is really not palatable to say that a stock obligation extends even past what this guy is entitled to get paid. Elamai, it's not really going to be any difference. The Gemara says it's not a raya. Either way, you're going to have to come on to the fact that it's hakanas hakra, xeris hakasav, that he's entitled to it. So whether it's mishaloi or whether it's mishamayim, he's up. We said there's a machlokes about this. But Elazar says the pile he can't eat more than what he says, than what he gets paid. The Chum say it's matter. So we just said that we have to come on to the Rachmana that it's Geras HaKasav, but now we're saying that it's a machlokes. So can we say that that's what the machlokes is? The man who says that he gets it is Mishalayu, and the man who says that he can't get more than what he's entitled. I'm sorry, the man who says he can get more than what he's entitled to. I think that's the way Rashi says it. So it's a matanos, it's gemilas chasadim. So that can even extend more than what he gets paid. So that would be the chacham would be matter. But the kuliyam Mishalayu.
Why won't you say soif ugu bedanka anchel bezuzo here?
Yeah, I'm saying. So they ask what's the nafkamina. We just said this, but the point is, since it's a machlokes, we want to say now it's more palatable to say that the reason for the machlokes is, once we have a machlokes about it, we could say that the machlokes is whether you could say it's exeris hakasav or not. That means before we had to say, in any case, we had to come on to the fact that it's in excess, according to whether it's Mishaloy or Mishal Saka. But now that we're saying one man says you can't get more, maybe that's because Itaka holds you can't do Uchla Bedanka, Avid Bedanka, Uchla Bezuza. But Gemara says no. There's really a different reason for that machlok. Everyone holds Mishaloy Yoich. The pasuk of Kanafshach, Marsab Kanafshach, Bedavish and Moisa Nafsheola. One man says Kanafshach. When the Torah says he eats Kanafshach, it means like what his kafi, what his work is. That means what was his name? Rabbi Lazar Chasma says Kanafshach tells you he is allowed to eat Kanafshach, meaning his nafshach is his work. So up to the amount that he works, that's how much he could get paid. Omar Sava Kanafshach, like we had darshan before. We want to say that if the owner himself is allowed to be chaysim himself, so too, if you're chaysim the worker, you're not going to be chayiv for leisachsam sharbadisha. You're not going to get the malchus for leisachsam, even though he's entitled to eat, but he's not going to get that lav of leisachsam. Tashma, nazir sha'omer tznu, a nazir who's not allowed to eat grapes. And he says, we're going to stop over here because my phone is literally on one. I'm just going to get interrupted and I want to make sure to record this.